Thanks very much, Tina, and thanks to everyone for being here today and for this great opportunity to learn and exchange, as Tina said, some things that we've been working on in the region. So just as a bit of context, in our region, infodemic management and social listening have long been a part of our efforts on risk communication and community engagement, or RCCE, including in the COVID response, of course, but also going back about a decade of capacity building work in that area, including elements of rumor management, listening, and community feedback. So building on this, from the very first day of the pandemic, WHO Europe focused on bolstering that work, including formative research, social listening, to really inform strategy and messaging, not only for the COM pillar, which is our team as part of the broader response team here in the regional office, but also for that broader setting and even for the leadership of our regional office. So in the next 10 minutes or a little bit less, hopefully, I'll go over some of the key guiding documents to give a broad overview, show how social listening in our understanding connects to community engagement, to really tackle the root causes of the infodemic. We'll touch on a couple of concrete examples of our work with social listening efforts and their early impact. We'll give you a quick overview of a focused project we have on infodemic management, and finally touch on a few challenges and opportunities for the area of social listening. And I'm hoping to take you by the hand with an analogy of music, because I think it can be illustrative for some of the points. So moving along, I'll touch just very briefly on some of the context that informs our work. The general program of work that most of you will be familiar with has a line on protecting 1 billion people from health emergencies. And that's really the biggest picture, I would say, that we're trying to feed into with our work. We also have a regional counterpart to that, which again includes a measure for the emergencies and makes special mention of rumor management, of the infodemic as a challenge within COVID-19. And importantly, focuses really on the root causes of that. So one thing that's mentioned in this document is the disconnect that exists between legitimate expectations from people and the concrete experience of a deteriorating environment in health emergencies. So, this connects to our work in a number of ways that we'll see in a moment. But I think this focus on what's the root cause of the infodemic that we're trying to really tackle is really important to remember. As mentioned, we have about a decade of experience building capacity on programmatic RCCE with a couple of key training packages and initiatives mentioned here. And then as part of the COVID-19 response, we have our pillar strategy, and a part of that is a specific project for infodemic management. Moving along, just touching quickly, and this connects to some of the examples that other colleagues from the regions have also given. You can conceptualize social listening as falling on a spectrum of engagement. You can take social listening as the first step, but also if you're looking at the spectrum, you can see it as a second step where you're not just messaging to your communities, you're actively listening to them, but then also that listening and engagement needs to continue as you build trusting relationships that are progressing along this spectrum to more empowerment. And that's really something that we're trying to connect in our team in the region. To not see it as an isolated intervention, but really we think the true value of social listening is as a part of those feedback mechanisms. So not just collecting data, but making sure that we have some sort of accountability over these efforts to the communities that we serve. Just a number of examples. In our musical analogy, this would be some of the instruments that we try to fine tune and have been working on over the course of the pandemic. You'll probably be familiar with most of these, but some examples include CrowdTangle as a tool that we're using to listen for media, as well as for performance of our social media accounts across the region and country offices in multiple languages, and working together with our country offices and partners. We have a number of other tools that we pull data from. The EPI-WIN is one corporate tool that we look at. EARS is a platform that has our interest, and there's some countries that are involved in that, and we're hoping to build on that further. This is an example of some listening that we did in partnership with Hungary, looking particularly at public health and social measures, how the conversations were moving on those. And the PHSM angle is interesting for another reason, as it's the focus of a sort of an inter-team collaboration where, you know, our region puts together different dashboards with EPI curves, for example, and with key moments in public health and social measure, you know, restrictions being applied or lifted. So, you know, with that work, we tried to see correlations between, excuse me, at the epidemic curve and sort of lifting or increasing restrictions. But now we're also looking at trying to add behavioral and social and listening data to that, so that you can start to see the logic correlations and the causal connections between the announcement of a restriction, the responses to that in online and offline conversations in terms of support or resistance perhaps, and the connection to the EPI curve. So that's something we're very excited about. Another tool that we have in place for listening and collecting survey data is the chatbot called Health Buddy Plus. And that is, just wanted to pull this example to show that there can be some interesting side effects when you're practicing social listening and you're really connecting with your communities. You know, you can see that that is much appreciated, and there's a strong hunger and a need for evidence-based, reliable information on all aspects of the pandemic. Finally, we have a very robust social listening, or rather research tool in place called Behavioral Insights surveys. And yeah, I mean, this is really to show that we have a scala of tools and we're using the right tool for the right purpose. One interesting example also, or impact of this work with the Behavioral Insights, that Romania has announced that they will be establishing a new unit within the ministry to focus on this work. So that's very encouraging. I'm going to skip a little bit over the coming slides because I see I'm at 7 minutes. But just to mention that, you know, we're not alone in this. As all the other regions also mentioned, partnership is very important, not just with sister agencies, but also with groups of influencers, including faith-based organizations, youth networks, and healthcare workers. It's just a number of the influencers and amplifiers that we're trying to engage with. This is a quick slide on the focused project that we mentioned, that thanks to strong collaboration with colleagues in Geneva and Solidarity funding, we're able to set up. And I think a number of the things that other regions also mentioned will also be focusing on here is, you know, really supporting countries to increase their capacity in this area, make sure we have the science, that we have the data as applicable to the region, make sure we involve the right stakeholders, and yeah, take it from there. A quick look at some of the opportunities and challenges that we can see in the area of social listening. So as we saw with the tools as well, social listening, the increased attention that it's getting, it's really showing us that there's a great opportunity there to have another source of data, or multiple sources of data with varying sort of degrees of flexibility, robustness, and thus also varying needs for triangulation. So, you know, to quote Mike Ryan, if you need to be right before you make a move, you will never win in an emergency or in a pandemic. And I think that social listening there, we see that it really has a lot to offer. It also has a lot to offer in terms of pairing our organization's strengths with those of tech companies, academia's expertise, sister agencies to an extent. So, you know, lots of exciting things, I think, to look at. There are some challenges that we're trying to consider in our region. Digital divide and inequity, even though has 9 minutes for, thank you for that, has a reputation for being quite strong in terms of internet and tech penetration. We do have to remember to leave no one behind in all of our efforts, including this. Same goes for applying our usual standards of rigor. So that's something else to keep a look at, and make sure that we keep going to the root causes. I'm going to skip over this one just to mention that we've got a number of things in the pipeline that we can be excited about and look forward to. And I just want to end on this slide again as a reminder of what we're really trying to do, and what we should always remember, that you know, let's say a human science, and unless we understand why people are drawn to these sorts of information, we'll always be playing whack-a-mole. And the second quote illustrating that is, it's not about the individual pieces, but really it's about the relationships that underlie and drive this. So with that, I think I'll conclude and hand the floor back to the moderator. Thank you.